Is this wire routing correct? From down here up and in between the frame and the motor mount. So I want to do a video on a bike that you might find on Craigslist or Facebook or wherever you're finding cheap old pieces of crap. This is an old Goldwing behind me. It's a 1980 and I just picked it up for $160, which is ridiculous. And it even has a title. So that is already pretty rare for something that's 40 years old. And I'm just going to go through how much it's going to cost you to put the thing together. You know, this is shaft drive, but often your chain and therefore sprockets are going to need to be done. Tires are pretty much always cracked and old and rotted. So that's like an easy like $400+ with those before you even get to things like rebuilding the brakes, which are shot on this bike, rebuilding the carburetors, rebuilding who knows what else, finding parts on eBay that are for stuff that's missing or broken. So it's just kind of like how you tally up all that junk and just see if you want to get into fixing a bike that you might find. This bike is mostly together, so it might actually run. It did crank partially last night. The motor's not seized, so I'm pretty happy about that. It definitely spent some time outside. There's corrosion on a lot of stuff. The bike does not roll well at all. The brakes are super draggy. We actually took the rear rotor off last night because it would barely move, and the bike is super heavy. I don't even know, these are like 600 pounds or something. So yeah, I'm just gonna go through kind of what I'm looking at, what I'm doing, and what I'm gonna be fixing, and this might end up being like a couple episodes or whatever you want to call it. So we'll see if this thing's gonna work. I figure worst case, I can part the thing out for much more than $160. I also got like 2 boxes of extra parts. I have a bunch of extra wiring, some extra front calipers, just a bunch of extra junk in a box. So I can use whatever of that I need, or part that out too on eBay if I don't need it. But I'm not going to lose any money. Time I will lose. But that's my curse, is because I can't say no to really cheap pieces of junk that I find on Craigslist. So here we are. See how it goes and if it'll work. Front tire is very shot and it's pretty flat, so that's going to be changed. It's definitely not a 1980 light, but I've got something old that'll work for there. The clutch does work. I put it in gear last night and backed it off the trailer using that, and that did work. I do have a side cover for this. The battery is voltage. I ended up cleaning all these terminals last night because you can see there's rust here. There was tons of corrosion under this plug. This thing was definitely in the rain for an amount of time. So I cleaned those up. The rear brake was pretty gross and was dragging the rotor really bad, so we actually took it off to get to move the thing. But really, it's not that bad. I mean, still $160. I'll take it. Yeah, surprisingly, the fork seals don't even look bad. They might even be okay. I'm gonna have to clean up some of this pitting here so it doesn't. I'm assuming these soft old forks are gonna definitely be moving up in this area, so I'm gonna clean that off with some sandpaper so they don't wreck the fork seals, and then yeah, this thing might work. Okay, something we did last night is check the gas tank. So this is what I was saying, this bike is kind of odd and car-like. The tank is actually here below the seat and into the subframe. So it kind of just sits here by the battery, and then the air box is actually kind of underneath where a tank would be. And then there's just a false tank that covers this whole thing and makes it look like a normal bike, even though it's very odd. But I don't know how long it's been since this bike has been ridden. I'm guessing by the rust, we are looking at a few years. You can see this lovely buildup down in there. There is actually some gas in the tank too, so I'm going to end up pulling the tank out and putting some hardware in here with some old gas and just shaking it out and trying to knock all that rust out. I also have zero brake. There's nothing at all. And the rear brake is the same. Start taking the fuel tank out. So there's just two 12mm head bolts here. There's one here. I'm not sure if there's supposed to be something there, but I don't see a tab on the tank, so I don't know what that is. But took those out, and then the petcock is right here. It was in the on position when I got it, so that means there's gas in the carbs probably, so that's fun. But oh well, we're gonna have to clean those out. I'm gonna remove this hose. I'm gonna have to disconnect this little sending unit thing. So initially I was thinking this tank might actually just slip out through this part in the frame. And then I took the side cover off and I realized it has this big bulge right here. So it's definitely not coming out up. So it looks like it has to go backward. Meaning the fender and rear wheel have to come off, which I need a new tire anyway, so oh well. So I don't have a center lift or like an ATV type lift for the lifting the motor. So I kind of precariously, I jacked this side up a little bit, got a stand under the old exhaust mount, and then got a jack over on this side and jacked up on this one. So I've got the rear wheel off the ground, then I just added a bunch of wood underneath the engine just in case as a safety. And we'll see if we can get this hunk of junk out. The first I need to take off the axle nut. I'm leaving the pinch bolt right here tightened so I can loosen this guy. And this is why you replace cotter pins, because I just went to close it so I could get it out and it basically broke. So whoever put this on last just must have gone like, there you go, that's good enough, because it was literally like finger tight. So here's part of the problem of why the bike did not want to roll. I'm bottoming out my indicator on how much run out this rotor has. That's probably like in the neighborhood of 15 thou run out when you should pretty much have virtually none. So the axle nut on the other side is supposed to be torqued to like 65 foot-pounds, and it was basically finger tight. And then this pinch bolt is probably, who knows, maybe 20 foot-pounds, but they probably did this at like 65. Honest mistake. Wiring 101. Don't worry about old wiring like this. That wire's actually been rubbed almost completely through by the tire, but not completely through, so leave it alone. Moving on, where your connections are, just kind of loosely wrap a few layers of electrical tape. Don't worry about like exposed connections where water can get in. It'll never get in there anyway. Because of step 3. Once you take this, you just hook this gently on the inside of the fender. There's a little lip there. And if you're careful and don't breathe, it'll stay there for thousands of miles. Achoo! That'll never happen though in the real world. Moving on to your next wiring how-to. Don't even bother with plastic connectors or like butt connectors, stuff like that. Waste of time and money. Definitely don't worry about soldering or soldering irons. That's just stupid and plain old-fashioned. You don't need to deal with stuff like that. Really all you need to do is strip the wire bare and twist it together a few times by hand. And then just leave them kind of dangling in there. They'll be fine. If they brush up into the inside of the fender, you might blow a fuse, but what fun would motorcycling be if you didn't have things to fix, right? So once again, this bike is a lesson in torque specs. So I tried to take off this little cap nut, and somebody way over torqued it. So instead of this coming loose, it just pulled the entire stud that was like red Loctited in here. So normally I'm pretty sure this would have had like a significantly higher torque than this. Like say this is maybe 40, this might only be like 25. So when you take this off in the future, it will come off here and not pull out the whole stud. Okay, once the wheel is out of the way, and then my fender only had a couple bolts, like one bolt on each side. Got the fender out of there. There's a little plastic fender you can pull out of here. And then it's kind of just wedged in here by rubber pieces. And then the petcock does have to come off. So I'm going to take off this motor mount and then pop that guy out. and then this should slide back. I do have it, it's kind of loose now, so it was stuck in there pretty good, but I got it moving. I did also remove this battery tray. There's just 10 millimeter hex bolts. There's one here, and one here, and then that thing just comes out. I got to disconnect the power to the starter and a couple connectors here, and then the whole tray gets out of the way so this little indent in the tank can clear it and slide back. I was just wondering if it's really worth doing all this to take the tank out, and then I just pulled the petcock off and I've got just like solid rusty poop, just full. Completely blocked on the tank and mostly blocked in here, so probably a good idea that I did this. Last thing I hopefully have to take out is this little air shock piece. It's a big, again, over-tightened 19 millimeter nut. So I get that out of the way because it was wedging on this tank. So I'm gonna see if it'll slide out now. The way I had it jacked up, these pieces of wood were blocking the swing arm, which was keeping this brake little trailing arm up in the way of the tank. So I just let it sit down on all these blocks, so now the motor's supported and the swing arm came down, and now I think it'll actually finally clear. Let's see. We're looking better. Might have to get it down even a little bit further. That's about it, actually. I think we're good. So I didn't want to damage this little level sending unit. This is your just little float gauge. It's held in by this retaining ring at the top, which you can just tap out using these tabs to rotate it, and then pull this whole thing out. Because what I'm going to do is throw a bunch of hardware in here and shake it around, try to break free all this rust. So I pulled out, I've got 30 nuts here. They're all like plus or minus M8 size, so they're heavy enough and big enough to hopefully break some stuff off, but not big enough to necessarily damage the tubing inside or anything like that. And then they're not small enough to not have enough weight and maybe get stuck inside and not be able to get them out. So I counted them. I have 30. I will make sure I have 30 when I get them back out. As you can see, there's a lot less junk in there now. There's still some heavy scale on the wall, but that's all just like literally eaten into the wall of the tank. But all the loose stuff is gone that I could get out, and I just swished some gas around. It wasn't too bad, so I think there's a pre-filter right there. You can barely see. Both of the fuel inlets have those little pre-filters, so that'll block any big chunks, and then the main fuel filter will block the rest, and hopefully it'll run. This is kind of cracked at the end. It's like mashed or something. I'm probably just going to end up replacing this. I might have to look at that too. It's a little kinked. That breather is not, kinked breather is not good, but it might be all right. And this fuel filter is pretty disgusting as well. That's had some nice crusty, rusty gas going through it for a bit. So I'm also curious how nasty the fuel pump is. So I actually have another fuel pump though, so we'll see how that is. Might change it if I need to. All right, I shortened the breather. This kind of got a goofy breather hose here that someone made. It was kinking right here, so I shortened it a little bit and jammed it on. It's not the right size, but got it on enough to where it's not going to come off. Have a new fuel line, a new filter laying in there ready, and now I'm going to probably get to the carburetors. Actually, you know what, I might crank this thing first without the plugs and just make sure it's cranking freely first, and then I'll mess with these. Okay, so I pulled off this kind of funky double boot that it has for the spark plugs, and you can see one side they have little water drain holes, and this side's dry, and then that side is full of water. because the hole is clogged up. So I definitely need to get that out of there before I can pull that plug. That's not a good sign. Pretty sure that's water on the spark plug. Not super surprising because this bike was sitting outside from the looks of it. Yeah, I think that's water. Well, hopefully not a lot is in there and we can just kick it on out. Alright, so there's definitely a little bit of water in at least one cylinder, and just like a lot of probably just moisture from like humidity from sitting outside. So we'll see if anything sputters out. Look at the oil level, it doesn't look like it's not overly high or anything, so it's not like full of water. I'm just going to see if it cranks freely and if anything flies out of the spark plug holes, and then I'm going to check spark. I was going to check compression, but I don't have an adapter that'll fit, so I guess I'm not doing that anymore. But this is not set up, I have not cranked this at all without the plugs on it, so I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm kind of standing away from the holes. See if it actually cranks. That was a big spark. Oh, I loosened the ground. I had to take this off to get the petcock out, but I forgot the ground is right there, so we'll tighten that back up. Try that again. On. Whoa! That's sort of what I was expecting. Holy crap, there's a lot of water in there. I was hoping it wasn't that bad. Oh man. I barely tapped it because I was afraid of it spraying stuff everywhere, and that's exactly what happened anyway. And now that's only one cylinder, so I've still got 3 others that might kablooey everywhere. I don't know. That's probably why it did not want to crank, because it was full of fluid. Sweet, only one cylinder full of junk. Well, that's good news. So we've only got 1 cylinder that's rusted and corroded and ruined. Still got 3 more. Check if there's spark. Spark on 1. Spark on 2. Spark on 3. Spark on number 1. Means we got spark on all of them. Sweet. Aside from there being a flood in cylinder number 2, this thing might actually run. Oh, really? That was not recording the entire time. Here we go again.